Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm glad to invite you for our meeting today, webinar meeting with our partner TRINITI. I would like to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Giedrė, and I'm representing a German Chamber of Commerce in Baltics, today in Lithuania. And yes, now the camera is on. And and once again, warmly welcome to everyone for today. We have very interesting theme, changes in labor law in Lithuania. And we have a lot of changes via last 2 months, and could be that the changes will continue, but still we need to adapt and to work in new environment, also in the new law environment as well. I would like to said that our meeting will be recorded today in order to share with our members, and also maybe the theme is quite important for all of you, so you can share this meeting and find in our webpage. And of course, the next thing I would like to say for you that we have a chat in Zoom meeting, and please use this chat in order to ask your questions, because our speaker will answer after her presentation. A little bit about Giedrė Čiuladienė, who will guide this meeting and give a presentation for you. Giedrė is associate partner in law company TRINITI. She has more than 15 years of experience across the civil and labor law. Very big experience, I would say, and we are very glad to welcome her in our meeting for today. She advises a number of local and international companies in labor law issues, and we could say that the field might be called her passion. So welcome, Giedrė. Please enjoy your stay with us, and we are quite curious about your presentation for today. And yes, afterwards, please answer all the questions from our participants. Thanks.
Hello, I'm really glad to be here and to share my knowledge with you. As already Eugenia has told, labor law is my secret passion because it's very close to every person. It's close to an employer, also to the employee, or if you are not employed, then your relatives are definitely employed. So today I will share my knowledge about changes that were caused by the quarantine. I will start from the numbers because they are the most important, and actually they really cause changes. So it all started from a very dangerous disease. And now we see that there are 1,570 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Lithuania. And from the first side, the number is not so high, but we managed to reach only this number due to a lot of measures, and it actually resulted in much bigger numbers in economics. So in the first quarter of 2020, due to quarantine, approximately 7% of employed persons did not work or worked less in the last 2 weeks of March, when the quarantine was declared. Women composed almost 60% of that number. And the most affected sectors were construction and services. Now we see that the affected sectors have a bit changed, and the services compose a bigger part. And then we see that over 17,000 of new unemployed persons entitled to benefits were identified in April, and the average unemployment allowances only 343 euros per month. Then the companies announced downtime, which also resulted in fewer income, and the number of such companies composed 24,600. Afterwards, approximately 60,000 persons were issued with certificates of incapacity for work due to childcare during quarantine, because a lot of kindergartens were closed, so people had to stay with their children, and they didn't really have opportunities to work also. But not only bad things happened during the quarantine. We learned how to work remotely, and there were some lessons learned. So the first lesson was information technologies. We learned how to use them. We learned what technologies might be used. Probably most people didn't even know about Zoom prior to the quarantine. Then we learned how to connect, when to connect. We knew that we cannot be late to the meeting because you're forced to wait with other colleagues. Then there was a pleasant surprise for the managers because the managers learned to impose less control and to gain more trust in their employees. Another lesson was that internal communication and feedback are vital. There are some rules for information channels, because if you want to, if an employer wants to give some information, it must be sure that it's the content of the information is available to identify. Then it is possible to identify the provider of the information, the time and the fact of provision, and also there should be reasonable possibilities to save that information. Only in that case it is considered that the information is duly provided. And in case of a dispute, it is for the employer to prove that all these conditions were present. Another lesson learned was that to work under remote conditions is actually very effective. A lot of articles were in media that that told that the productivity and savings have increased of the employees because they do not really waste time on travel to work, on lunch in cafes and so on. Also, there is a better work and private life balance, but not in all cases, because if you have small children, they don't really allow you to work effectively. So we also found out that there are some outbacks, like uncomfortable working place, unlimited working hours, and so on. And now a lot of people want to get back to work, and they must obey the back to work rules that we will discuss further. So in case there is no possibility to work remotely, there is an option to declare downtime. It is used instead of termination of employment, because of course the business expects that the situation is going to end, and then it will be possible to proceed with a normal previous life. Downtime might be either full-time or partial. And the types of downtime might be divided into three groups. The first one being depending on the employer, when the employer is not able to provide work to its employees due to some business reasons, but not the disease. The other group is due to the employee's fault, when the employee actually causes that there is no work. For example, it breaks equipment, or there are some similar reasons. And the last type is due to emergency state and quarantine, which is very new, and it is related to the current situation with COVID-19. What is the meaning of those types is that they cause different consequences. They're starting from different payment terms, but just it should be noted that salary is still paid by the employer, even though he is entitled to subsidies. Also, there is an effect on the right to terminate employment with or without severance pay. What it means that there are some grounds where employees are entitled to terminate the agreement and to claim severance pay when the reasons actually are based on the employer. And the last consequence is the entitlement to subsidies, which is only available in case of emergency state and quarantine. So in case of the first type of downtime, payment starts from 100% of salary, and it goes to 40% of the salary from the fourth day. If this state lasts for 30 days in a row, or 45 days in the last calendar year, then the employee might present an application to the employer and say that, okay, that's enough, I'm quitting, and then he would be entitled to severance pay, and the employer would be obliged to pay it. This pay depends on the length of employment of the worker, and starting from the quarantine, a lot of discussions arose that the government actually forgot to amend one article of the labor code, and there was a situation that if an employer has already declared downtime due to quarantine, then the employees might use the same rights also. But the state labor inspectorate issued its opinion that they would not approve such severance pay and such grounds for termination if the downtime was actually caused by the quarantine. So in case of a dispute, it would not be approved. In case of downtime due to the employee's fault, payment is it depends on actual circumstances, and should be checked whether, for example, the employee was drunk, or there were some reasons due to safety, and payment should always be evaluated depending on the factual circumstances. Subsidies in those cases are, of course, not paid. And in case of downtime due to emergency state and quarantine, the payment is also regulated by the state. The employee is entitled to pay at least the minimum monthly salary, which is 607 euros, or it might be, or a higher amount might be paid by the employer, but not more than the previous salary that was indicated in the labor code. So it's not allowed to increase the salary and then to claim a higher subsidy from the state. Talking about subsidies, they were provided by the state to help the employers to keep the workplaces. And these subsidies depend on the period, so they are given either during quarantine or after quarantine. So the first type is the first types of subsidies are paid from declaration of downtime, and it's available at the percentage which is chosen by the employer. The employer might choose either to pay 70% or 90% of the salary, and there are maximum limits that are either 1.5 of the monthly minimum salary or only of a single minimum monthly salary. After the quarantine, other measures were introduced, and the amendment of the law was recently issued. So now it's possible to apply for subsidies for up to 4 or 6 months that we will discuss further, and they vary from 30 to 100%, and the maximum limit is 1,214. What we also have learned from this all situation that it's very important to be a privileged person, like to be on a list to a special party. What it means that there are specific lists that were provided by the state, and the first one is the list of severe chronic diseases, which has 2 consequences. The first one is that those persons that cannot work due to those diseases, they belong to the group that are under extreme risk. So they are entitled to receive a certificate of incapacity for work, and also they should be safeguarded more by the employer. Another list is the list of the taxes related measures, where the companies were either included by the state tax inspectorate automatically, or if the companies did not find themselves in there, they were allowed to apply to the state tax inspectorate with the application. And we have actually tried this, whether it's easy to do that or not, and it really the state tax inspectorate really does good work here, because if you ground your application and ground the reasons why you are affected by this COVID-19 situation, it really includes in the list without any obstacles. So now there are over 50,550 companies in that list. The meaning of being in that list is not only that you have possibility to use taxes related measures like postponed terms for payment or for declarations, but also companies that are on those lists are on this list, they are entitled to subsidies that are given after the quarantine. And the last list, which is I call this list the companies of social value. It is not approved yet, but it will be, and it will entitle to higher subsidies. So measures after the quarantine were proposed by the state, and these are subsidies for self-employed persons, subsidies for employees exiting downtime, then there is a job search allowance, financing of vocational training, and support for establishment of a workplace. What we will discuss further, these will be subsidies for employees exiting downtime. This is a very important measure because businesses are not going to recover very quickly, so these subsidies will really help to recover. Of course, it's very important to check whether the employer is entitled to those subsidies. And these are the ones that have declared downtime and applied for subsidies. Of course, the company should check whether it has informed the state labor inspectorate. It should be done within 1 day from declaration of the downtime, and then application and a proposal to participate in the state guaranteed measures should be submitted to the employment services in the next month until the 15th day. The other group of entitled employers is those who received subsidies for supported employees before quarantine, and then declared downtime to them also. So these are the groups of, for example, for persons with incapacities. And the last group is the privileged, the one that is on the list of those companies that have suffered from COVID-19, and this list is made by the state tax inspectorate. So the first, the usual case has the limit of 607 euros. These subsidies are going to be paid for up to 6 months, and then starting from 100 and finally getting to the 30% only. The second group is of socially valuable companies. In this case, the limit is twice higher, and it reaches 1,214 euros. And the last group, which gets the smallest subsidies, is that group where employers use temporary or seasonal work. They are entitled to subsidies of up to 303 euros and 40 cents. So even though subsidies are available, but employers should remember that there are some actions that are forbidden. So the first one is that work during downtime is strictly forbidden, and this is the case that if state labor inspectorate identifies such fact, the subsidy should be returned to the state. And the other forbidden action is to retain less than 50% of employees. And there is a difference whether those employees were under downtime during the quarantine or after. If those employees were under quarantine, under downtime during quarantine, then at least 50% of all employees should be maintained for the first 3 months after the subsidy was paid, the last subsidy. And when employers use subsidies after the quarantine, then it's important to keep the employees that 50% of the employees that were paid salary and used subsidy for that. I have already received some questions whether it's allowed for the employer not to pay full salary. But I think that there is some misleading information in the employment services forms, because there is a statement that the employer has to declare that he has paid either 30 or 10% of the salary, of the minimum salary, depending on the case, to the employee. But actually, it is for the employer to pay full salary and then to receive subsidy compensation for that. Okay, so now after the subsidies, we should get back to work, and there are some safety rules that have to be obeyed. And the start is to classify the employees into groups, even though discrimination is forbidden also. So the first group is a high-risk group. These are employees older than 60 years, and the ones that have severe chronic diseases. Those diseases are listed, and there are 11 of them. This group is entitled to higher safety standards. It should be entitled to remote work as long as possible, and if it's not possible, then the contact with the other employees or with the clients should be restricted as much as possible. The other group is the one that has signs of infectious diseases. What is one of the most interesting points here is that fever is considered being present when it's at least 37.3 Celsius degrees. So this group should not be entitled to come to workplace at all. Another safety rule is that gradual return should be made to the workplaces. What it means that up to 50% of all employees should get back to work in the first 2 weeks. Afterwards, it should be observed whether it's possible to return to normal work for all employees. Another safety rule is that information is very, very important here. So notifications must be made both to the employees and visitors. Employees must be notified how to know that there is possibility of COVID-19. Also, how to wash the hands and how to apply other safety measures. Visitors should also be informed, and the special written notifications must be made available for them before coming to receive the service or some other to achieve some other goals. Also, constant monitoring is very important, and one of such measures is checking temperature. There are a lot of questions whether whether it's possible to register those meters. So we recommend not to register, just to check the temperature and to decide whether to allow the person to enter or not. And the employer is also obliged to check and monitor whether there are other symptoms in respect of the employees or the visitors. Another rule is that the safety equipment should be present. So, for example, masks, disposable gloves, disinfectant. Distance should also be observed. It's not an equipment, but still at least 1 meter between the employees' workplaces should be kept, or walls should be made. In case of visitors, a bigger distance should be kept. It's 2 meters. Alternative spaces should be used for providing the employees with workplaces instead of gathering them in one place. And ventilation should be also present, so the windows should be opened widely if there are no people. And the last safety rule is to know the action plan in case of a positive COVID-19. So what should be done in this case is removal from workplace of that person. Then that employee should be offered to consult with the coronavirus hotline telephone number 1808, or to contact the family doctor. Also, information and cooperation with the National Public Health Center is obligatory. It is needed for identification of any contacts of the infected person. The infected employee should be isolated for 14 days. And of course, the premises should be disinfected. So what is our help that we could offer to assist in this case, in this situation, is starting from employment contracts and other documents that this is the function that we actually provided until the quarantine, and now we are ready to proceed and assist in back to work rules, other internal rules. We may also provide assistance in application for subsidies and other services. Also, we have prepared the rules for those companies that work in the offices, and would be glad to share with you, and also to share the newsletters if you send me an email to those contact details that are identified here. So thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, I think that Eugenia will will read them to me.
Yes, thank you, Giedrė. Until now, we don't have any questions. Seems like your presentation was very, how to say, full of every answers. Another thing is, thanks for sharing. It was actually my question after this meeting, how you or Trinity can help our, how to say, our members and our all listeners of this webinar to manage the crisis in the office and how you can assist. So, and that was your last slide with your answers. Thank you for that. So once again, for the audience, if you have something to ask Giedrė right now, you can do it by chat and ask her. And of course, you can unmute also your microphone and ask directly. So not so many questions right now, but anyway, you can find Giedrė also in Trinity page, and also you can contact us. We will be more than happy to connect you with Giedrė with all the questions regarding labor laws. I think in the next future we can also experience that a lot of changes will be made even after the crisis. Now it's happening as well, and even quicker than in the crisis, inside the crisis. And so we will have a lot of challenges to handle all these changes as well for employees, but also for the employees as well. So I would say thank you for all participants. All the recorded video you can find soon in our webpage. We are more than happy to provide with all various webinars, quite important themes in the German Baltic Chamber of Commerce. So let's stay in touch, follow us in our media, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.